Our next presentation is Stemson Therapeutics, and I'd like to welcome Jeff Hamilton, co-founder and CEO, to the stage.
All right. Thanks, everybody, for being here. It's a pleasure to tell you about Stemson Therapeutics. We're a company that's dedicated to developing cell therapy approaches to regenerate hair follicles to treat many different forms of alopecia. All right, I got the clicker correct. So we've put together a really world-class team to pursue this really unique challenge. We're just about the only company we know of that's focused on this indication and focused on leveraging these technical approaches in cell therapy to address the problem. And what I'm going to tell you a little bit more about today is the technologies that we're developing in-house here to treat this. We, in some cases, leverage the regenerative power of iPSCs to treat late-stage hair loss and many other more medically damaging forms. We also leverage patient-specific hair follicles to treat various early-stage forms of hair loss. And because we're so unique in this space, we've been able to put together a really great patent portfolio, being pioneers in advancing this technology. And that portfolio expands across the globe, which is really important because we're planning on commercializing some of this technology in the near term, starting over in Asia, and I'm going to tell you more about that. This is an incredibly enormous market opportunity. Most folks think of sort of middle to late age men suffering from hair loss, but what I can share with you is every corner of the human population is affected: female, male, young, old, every ethnicity across the globe. And so we're looking forward to bringing better solutions to help these folks who desperately want to treat this condition that's affecting them. We do have a program that is in later clinical stages and is actually ready for commercialization in Japan. So we're very, very excited about that, but we also have a robust pipeline I'm going to show you of preclinical development. We are still a relatively young company, Series A funded by biotech and biotech VCs here in the US, as well as a big pharma, AbbVie Ventures, on behalf of their Allergan business unit. So let me just start by framing the problem a little bit, because in my experience, most folks don't know a lot about the hair loss space. And many of the folks that are suffering from hair loss are highly motivated to go solve the problem, and they end up having to spend money out of their own pocket. This is typically not insurance covered. It's all self-pay, and to the tunes of billions and billions of dollars. And when they go out into the space to look for solutions, talk to their dermatologist, they basically find the solution set you see here on this page. And there are only two therapies ever developed and commercialized for hair loss. That is best known as Propecia and Rogaine. You can see both of them up there. It has been 30 years since the last one of those was commercialized, and since then, zero innovation in the therapeutics to address hair loss. Some patients go through the most drastic option available to them, hair transplants, where you surgically remove hair from one part of the head and relocate it to the other. And really, all of these solutions, what they have in common is none of them have proven sufficient at stopping hair loss to begin with. And once you've lost your hair, none of them can actually regenerate the lost follicles that those patients desire. And so this is the challenge that Stemson was formed to address. Briefly, the team, we've put together a great group of stem cell engineers, cell therapy developers, dermatopathologists, pharmacologists, I should say, who specialize in treating hair loss, as well as skin engineering experts to treat the many different forms of alopecia that we hope to address over time. So one of the most important aspects to understand about the pathology of the disease of hair loss is that they are basically a degeneration of the specialized tissue in your skin that develops your hair shafts that grow out of the head and grow out of the body. And so whether you suffer from the most common form called androgenetic alopecia, you see on the left-hand side, that's best known as male or female pattern hair loss, or whether you suffer from a more medically urgent condition such as wounds and burns or chemo-induced damage to the hair follicles, autoimmune-induced damage to the hair follicles that you see on the right-hand side of the page, what they have in common is you've lost that functional tissue. It's either degenerated away slowly or it's been destroyed very rapidly. And so our approach to addressing this problem is really to develop cell and tissue replacements. We don't think that a drug molecule approach for many pathologies of hair loss can work because there's no functional druggable cells and tissue remaining in the area that needs to be treated. And so we think that cell therapy is really the right way over the long term to address these pathologies. And we've put together a really great pipeline of products and development programs that we're ushering through the process here. And we have 3 active programs, 2 of which are receiving the bulk of the investment, ST1 and ST2. I'm going to tell you a little bit more about these products. What I will say is ST1 and ST3 are iPSC-derived therapies to bioengineer hair follicles to treat much more difficult and late-stage forms of hair loss. And ST2 is a program that we're partnering with a big company called Adirans to treat earlier stage hair loss that has been tested in 450 patients here in the United States, and thanks to that data, actually is acceptable from a commercial approval perspective in Japan. And so we're actively working on getting the first ever cell therapy onto market in Japan to treat hair loss. So very exciting times. On the bottom half of this page, you can see the conditions that we hope to address over time. We're starting by addressing the one on the left-hand side, androgenetic alopecia. We think it's, from a biological and pathological perspective, the simplest to approach and treat. It also happens to be the most widespread version of hair loss, but we would like to put together solutions that are going to treat these 3 others that are more medically urgent and, frankly, can be very devastating in a very rapid manner to the folks that suffer from some of these different conditions. Okay, so just a quick introduction to the 2 platforms. I've oriented them from left to right on purpose, from early stage hair loss to late stage hair loss on the right. I'll start on the right, this ST1 platform. This is essentially a methodology whereby we bioengineer individual hair follicle units that are meant to create de novo hairs, one by one. And so we first start by differentiating iPSCs into highly potent hair-forming cells, folliculogenic cells we call them, and then we bioprint them into these individual units. This is meant to treat areas of the scalp that have either been damaged or destroyed, or your very late stage androgenetic alopecia where you just have no functional tissue to grow hair shafts left. And so by planting these seeds, so to speak, we can repopulate the entire head of hair. And so we can print as many of those as is needed and transplant those into the patient, similar to how hair transplants are produced today. On the left-hand side, I'll just say ST1 is still a preclinical stage program where we are in near IND-enabling stage with that one based on some more recent in vivo results. ST2 is our clinical stage program. This is a simpler approach where we take patient-specific hair follicle cells, we excise them in a biopsy punch from the back of the head. We isolate out the cells of interest that are highly folliculogenic, and then we expand those to basically treat the remainder of the scalp. So essentially, we're sacrificing a few hairs in order to dose areas where the hair is actively shrinking away in androgenetic alopecia, and those intradermally injected cells then engraft into those shrinking follicles that are still there, not yet gone, and those cells restore the functionality to the hair so that it can grow healthy hair shafts and prevent the further progression of hair loss. I'll share with you some of the clinical data that has been produced in this ST2 program. I'll train your eyes to the bottom left-hand corner first, where you can see a black tattoo sort of orients the image-based endpoint capture system, and you can see a before and after picture where the diagonal yellow line kind of represents the hairline, and the thin area of hair on the bottom left corner in the before picture, and the far thicker, more populous area of hair on the after picture 1 year later. This is after a single dose treatment, so a single injection of cells into the particular thinning area has, at minimum, a 1 year effect. We hope far longer, but this was how long the clinical trials were conducted. On the right-hand side of the page, you can see the quantification. This is a the endpoint is a per square centimeter hair count. So you want to see the hair counts increase from before and after, and that's the green line at the top is the Stemson ST2 program compared to some key benchmarks. The red line being the most important benchmark, that is the effect of minoxidil, otherwise known as Rogaine. That has to be applied every single day, typically twice a day, to the patient's scalp. And even after doing that and maintaining that daily regimen, it loses its effect after about 5 to 6 months versus a single dose treatment here of our product that has out to a 1-year effect with no follow-up compliance or treatment required. And so we're really excited about the potential to bring this product to commercial scale. And what I'll do, I'll take a little different tact. I'll talk a bit about commercialization with you because as we typically hear in most cell therapy programs, the difficulty and expense of manufacturing. That is true for our ST1 product that involves iPSCs and bioprinting, very similar to other cell therapy programs we hear, but it is not true for ST2. This is an incredibly fast and simple manufacturing process. We simply dissociate the biopsy punch from the patient's scalp into cell culture dishes, and the technicians basically set it and forget it for about 11 to 12 days. And after that, the population of cells that's required for that patient is ready to go. It's loaded into a simple syringe, similar to what you'd use to inject Botox into the undersurface of the skin. And so the COGS behind this are extremely low and allows us to offer this product at a patient-based price that we think is very attractive, similar to what patients pay for Botox today on an annual basis, far less expensive than a hair transplant procedure. And so we're very excited about ushering in a modality of cell therapy that can actually be quite scalable from an economic perspective. So now it's just a matter of us finding a way to scale out the autologous process for these patients to treat as many as we can. We expect in a very modest projection that this can be a billion-dollar product in the US alone. This gives you a little bit of data that if all we were to do was target certain folks in sort of the early to mid-stage of hair loss, about 20 million people in the US, and target those folks who actively seek treatment, that's about 1 million folks. And if we can convert those that tend to spend the most dollars today, they typically represent the most motivated. If that's all we ever did, you got a billion-dollar product right there. Of course, we aim much, much higher than this, so we expect a quite attractive commercial opportunity to get this modality of cell therapy started for hair loss. And we're excited because that should help us power the rest of the pipeline that we're developing to address these more challenging, more difficult, and in some cases more urgent pathologies of hair loss. And so I'm going to wrap it up here in just a moment, giving a little bit of runway here on how and when we can commercialize this program. Japan has a highly favorable set of regulations passed about 8 or 10 years ago that allows for cell therapy-based regenerative medicines to get to market more quickly than in most other countries, including the US. And so the data that we have on hand, especially because the safety of these autologous hair follicle cells was outstanding, 0 adverse events, they're comfortable allowing us to move forward. So I just got back from Tokyo 2 weeks ago, working to sign up a partner to help us manufacture, and we are already under a partnership with a company that's a household brand name in Japan, not well known here in the US, but called Adirans. That would allow us to commercialize with a known local brand name. And then once we do that, we expect to bring those capabilities, including some of the new data out of Japan, back into the United States to then set us up for phase 3 registrational trials in the US, which would require a couple of hundred patients to be treated and tested to give us the statistical significance for approval there. So we're really excited about that path and this path then to also power some of those preclinical programs using iPSCs to treat late stage and more medically challenging forms of hair loss. With that, I will close it out, and I think we got about 30 seconds left. Thank you very much for your time.